Hi everyone. Welcome to it's a multiversal episode of podcasting in the comics world. On this episode of Words, Images, and Worlds, I'm delighted to be talking with one of the hosts of a show that I personally love, Dollar Bin Bandits, and that is Mr. Oren Phillips.
Jason, good to see you again, my friend.
Great to see you. Great to see you. I was on your show earlier this year with one Mr. Terrence Dollard, and we've had a nice conversation that has been flowing both before that and after that. So I thought it would be really nice to have you on to talk a little bit about literacy and education and comics types of things.
Sounds good to me.
First trick question is, what's for dinner?
What's for dinner tonight is grilled chicken. I was told string beans, which I don't like, but they're being made anyway, and the possibility of mashed potatoes. So that's what's on the menu, supposedly going up on the grill right now.
Nice, nice. We
Yes.
also did grilled chicken, but we did a little kava inspired, like Greek Mediterranean sort of a thing. This is what people listen for. They listen for
Obviously,
the
it's the
eats.
cooking tips.
That's
Now,
right.
I'm kept far away from the grill because I'm sure if I try to use it, there'd be an explosion and we would
Uh
be having this conversation.
yeah, or there could be like some kind of event because so many comics origins happen with explosions.
That's true.
I fell into a grill and then I became Grill Man.
See,
It's
I'm
a
missing an
possibility.
opportunity up there.
That's right. That's right.
Hey.
So my question leading out, other than what's for dinner, is you have the show Dollar Bin Bandits. What is the origin of this journey for those that are uninitiated?
Well, Joe, Marcelo, Mike Farron, myself, we've all been friends for close to 30 years. I've known Mike since I was two, and we've been comic fans. And during the pandemic, we would do these sort of Zooms to keep up with each other. And we said, well, let's maybe interview some of our friends because Mike worked at Marvel for a little bit. My friend George Gustines works for the New York Times. He does covers comics for them. And my friend Allie's been a big comic fan who used to send letters to Steve Ditko back and forth. So we
Mm.
did those, and we're just like, oh, yeah, that'd be fun to put up there. And then someone's like, well, you want to interview William Ezra Loebs? And we were like, you mean we can interview real creative people? And
Mhm,
it's like,
mhm.
sure. And from there, it just sort of took off. And it's been a pleasure ever since getting to work with your best friends on this and to see it grow.
Yeah, man, I don't know about you, but I'm always amazed when people respond and they're like, yes, of course. I did use the show. I tell my students about the podcast, and so we were talking about food a little while ago. One of the questions today, because I just had my first day with students, was, "What's the name of my podcast? What do you think it would be?" And of course, one of the options was "Delicious Dish," as a possible thing.
Possible. Hey, there's a second, career for everyone.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I just might have to get better at cooking. That might be part of it. Know your strengths, play to your strengths.
That's
Uh,
true.
so we were talking about guests and the responses. Anytime that you can think of that you've been really pleasantly surprised? I won't ask about maybe surprises that haven't been as pleasant, but pleasant surprises with guests.
I remember very early on, we got a yes from Eric Larson,
Hmm.
and I called Joe immediately and I said, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I said, we just got Eric Larson. And he, what? Uh, it's moments like that you're just sort of like, whoa, Chris Claremont said yes. Like Jim Shooter is cool to talk to us. Um, and it's just there's folks that we get on who we know of, but then we're even more surprised about their careers and what they've been part of. And it's just like it's an extra bonus to hear so much about their lives and their careers. It's truly awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and to get to ask questions, to dig deeply into things, and just to get to share with people like this is this person. You've read this book, you've seen this movie. These are the creative talents behind some of these things.
Mm-hmm. And especially for us, we'd like to get some of the talents who worked in the 80s and even the 70s, because, these folks are getting older and we want to put their stories out there for folks to hear. And, what your show does and our show and a lot of other shows is we're documenting these people's lives. It's
Hmm.
there for posterity because I think in the past, unless you were someone who was reached out for a written interview, we might not know so much about them. We might know about certain projects, but not so much about them. But there's this great catalog now being built on YouTube and podcasts of research as to who these people were and what they worked on.
Yeah, yeah. It's a big comics historian kind of thing, and I never thought about it that way. I approach it as a fan and somebody
Mhm.
that loves comics and literacy and wants to share with students. But you're absolutely right. It's tapping into kind of this longer story.
Right. Oh,
Okay. I was just going to ask about your current pull list as well as your reread list.
my pull list is my story is the one I've told on the show. I stopped reading comics around 93.
Hmm.
I picked it up again about a decade ago. So a lot happened in those 20 plus years that I'm not totally familiar with.
Mm.
So I usually buy books from 1993 and earlier. That gives me a whole lot of reading to do. I went to Terrificon recently and picked a whole bunch of dollar books out. And just because it's sitting right here, I just got this sent to me. This is John Sable Freelance, but
Nice,
this is
nice.
the second run when Mike Grell left and Marv Wolfman took over.
Mhm.
I was a little hesitant because I'm such a Mike Grell fan, and John Sable has such a special place for my heart. I picked a couple issues up of this, and I started reading it. And I'm like, you know what? It's pretty spot on with what Mike was doing. So I was able to get these books relatively cheap, and I can't wait to dig into those.
Nice, nice. Now, have comics always been a part of your reading life? Have they been something that you would sort of say this is one of those foundations for me?
I think so. My dad was a comic book fan growing up, and I remember very early on he would buy a copy of Spider-Man or Superman, and we go to the Chinese restaurant across the street from the stationery store, and he'd read the comics to me while we'd have lunch when I was a little fella. So I always had comics around, but what really drove me in is when the superpowers figures came out,
Mm-hmm,
and in
mm-hmm,
the back were the little comic books that came with it. And, I was like, wow, these are, really interesting. And it's not a whole lot of reading. The stories are very basic. So for a
mm-hmm.
6-year-old like myself, those were sort of my big gateway into comic books. And, throughout the years, I'd find myself picking up a G.I. Joe graphic novel or something. Even when I was sort of out of comics, I always tried to keep a little bit inside. So for me, they've been, a pretty steady force in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Likewise, and I went through kind of a is this still something that I want to do kind of period too. I feel like most people have that moment where they kind of dip and they're like, do I still want to read comics? What's really happening?
Mhm.
But then love the story of the return as well.
I actually got back into it because my daughter, when she was about 2 or 3, started liking superheroes. So I went out and I bought the Oh Yeah from Art Balthazar and Franco, Oh
Hmm.
Yeah, Teen Titans, and a lot of the more kids centric comic books. And I'd read them to her before bed every night. And I started enjoying them quite a bit. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to scratch that itch again about comics. I found some of my old ones and I read them to her, and then I just started really getting back into it.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and comics are really interesting. I have some sort of educated or education related questions to ask you too, because I know you're a teacher.
Mhm.
Um, Comics are really interesting to try to read out loud.
Yes.
Some of the
But
wordless panels.
there's voices you have to do to differentiate the different characters.
Hmm, hmm.
It's really a performance. Like even when I'm reading comics today in my head, the characters have different voices,
Oh yeah.
and it's just sort of acted out. I mean, for some reason, for me, Adam West is always
Mm-hmm.
Batman when I'm reading him. Christopher Reeve is always Superman, and it just kind of goes on from there.
Yeah, yeah. Batman for me has somewhere of a Christian Bale growl kind of thing happening. It's somewhere in there. There's always somebody that Matthew McConaughey voices. I don't know why that is. Other than Western Deadpool, there's somebody that has that kind of voice going on too.
He's the voice of America, Matthew McConaughey.
That's right. That's right. If the dollar bill had a voice, absolutely.
That's what it would be.
That's right. That's right. So have comics made their way into your classroom and teaching space? Is this something that your students know about? Because I shamelessly let my students know. I like them to know that there are people out there that do these things.
Right. Well, right now I'm a teacher aide at a preschool for children with developmental, physical, or emotional disabilities. So we brought the Golden books of superhero stuff into the classroom. That kind of draws their attention.
Hmm.
And, you know, if it's something they want to read, I'll read the same book 20 times a day with them if I have to, because pretty soon they start to remember where certain words are from where we read it before.
Hmm.
Or they'll start asking questions about, well, why is he doing this and this? And, you know, for me, if anything that starts a conversation, I think is a great thing because the conversation leads to learning and it leads to maybe a conversation they might have with other kids. So that's, you know, social aspect of it too. So, you know, when a kid comes in with a Superman or a Spider-Man t-shirt on, I'm like, oh man, like how cool is that? Look, so and so's got this shirt on. The kids will come over like, oh yeah, I have this toy and this and that. And we'll
Hmm.
talk about it a bit, and it draws them into a crowd of maybe kids they weren't talking to before, or some of the kids were a little more nonverbal. It brings them into the group as well.
Love that. Yeah. And it's funny the instant kind of connections that you make. I credit a lot of that to like the Robert Downey Jr.
Mhm.
approach, the Marvel universe, making comics cool. And I
Mhm.
mean, to this day, this very day, I was having conversations with students about Deadpool and Wolverine and like, hey, what's the best movie of the summer?
Right. And did
Yeah.
they say it was Deadpool and
Oh,
Wolverine?
they absolutely did.
Yeah.
They absolutely did. Which inspired some of the art around the room. I now have a poster on the back of my wall that I made that says something about bye bye bye, and it has like the NSYNC Deadpool dance happening on the poster. So, we make those connections where we can.
Yeah, I brought my wife to see Deadpool and Wolverine, and uh, God bless her. You know, she went with me. She had never seen the Deadpool movies. She'd never seen
Hmm.
the X-Men Wolverine movies. So about 15 minutes into it, she was pretty much, some of the jokes she kind of got, but the rest of the story she was kind of shrugging about. And I was like, yeah, you kind of need a little more backstory for this movie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I also took my wife to
Mhm.
see Deadpool and Wolverine, and she also has not seen the first two movies. But I think Hugh Jackman was a selling point. I think she soldiered through for Hugh Jackman.
Something about that guy. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the singing voice. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah, it's the guy from, Broadway that you've probably seen do something else. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, so, any particular resources for listeners out there? I know the show very well, and as I mentioned, I will gush a little bit because I have a little bit of a commute, and it is one of my go-tos. If I'm not listening to like an audiobook, I'm usually listening to Dollar Bin Bandits or one of a couple of just a small number of others. So, big fan over here. But spaces where people can go, where they can check out some of the work.
We are on, I think, every podcast platform. If you just type in Dollar Bin Bandits, we
Mm,
are on YouTube. We just cracked 1,000 subscribers. It's
fantastic,
been a
fantastic.
slow but steady climb. So, I mean, now the money can just come pouring in from advertising.
That's
Uh,
right.
we'll be living large on that. But we're on that as well. On Facebook, we have a Dollar Bin Banter page. That's sort of where fans can go, to show off what they found in the dollar bins, just to have conversation with other people, just trying to build a community as well. And we have our Dollar Bin Bandits page too, which is just more formal announcements about what's coming up on the show and things like that.
Nice, nice. Well, very cool. Always glad to share about the work. Always glad to cross-pollinate and enjoy this multiverse
Yes.
of collaboration that we have. If Downey Jr. can be Doom now, we can totally
Anything
have
is
these
possible at
crossovers.
this
It
point.
really is. It really is. Absolutely. So many thanks, Oren. I hope the dinner is lovely.
I'm looking forward to it. And my children made dessert as well. It's some sort of a banana pudding cookie recipe my daughter found on the internet. So
Can't go wrong.
I'm living like a king tonight.
Absolutely.
Talking to
Absolutely.
you, having a nice dinner and dessert. What more
The
can I ask for?
the Kingdom Come Superman logo. I mean,
I think no, this is Bizarro.
yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, there we
That's
go.
why I
There we
got
go.
that because, maybe start a little buzz when I walk into a room like, oh snap, that's the 1930s Bizarro. I'm like,
Nice, nice, very cool.
so.
Your knowledge is impressive. Impressive.
At least you think so. Not so much around the house, but In
You
certain
know,
circles, you and I probably are the coolest guys in the room.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you. Well, this is one of those circles, and you're always welcome here, and many, many thanks.
Appreciate it, my friend.